So once again, thank you guys so much for joining us today for Webinar Wednesday. My name is Jen Kelfie and I'll be your moderator today. Um, Real quickly, we do just want to give a big thank you to our friends over at HSMAI South Florida. And I'm going to just hand things over to Robert real quickly to say a few words before we get started.
Thank you. Our industry is complex, and HSMAI, we connect the dots. The Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association is committed to growing businesses for hotels and their partners, and is the industry's leading advocate for intelligent, sustainable hotel revenue growth. The association provides hotel professionals and their partners with tools, insights, and expertise to fuel sales, inspire marketing, and optimize revenue. HSMAI South Florida has over 200 local members. Some of the perks of being a member of the HSMAI South Florida are on the screen here. Please visit hsmai.org to become a member. We'd be thrilled to have you as a member of our South Florida chapter. Because we believe today's students are tomorrow's trailblazers and innovators, our chapter awards scholarships to select individuals across South Florida throughout the years, including those seeking bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. To learn more, please visit www.hsmeisouthflorida.org and click on Students. There are a number of ways to support the scholarship program, and we're actively seeking monetary donation or gifts that we can raffle off at our gala in October. That is all for me. I will pass it on over to our team at Vizergy. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Robert. So just again, for those who've joined us, my name is Jen Kelfie. I'm an account executive here at Vizergy, and I will be your moderator today. I am very excited to announce our Vice President of IT, Kyle Peterson. He'll be presenting today on data and website analytics and how to turn your data into actionable insights. So if you have any questions while he goes through his presentation today, please go ahead and pop them in the Q&A section down at the bottom of the screen. We will do our best to make sure that we can answer questions as they come up. Otherwise, we'll make sure that we can get through them all towards the end. So without further ado, Kyle, I will let you have the floor.
All right. Thank you, Jen. So to get us started, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I am Kyle Peterson, the VP of IT. I'm a Vizergy veteran of 19 years. That is correct, 19 years. So I've been here a long time, love the people we work with and clients, just customers and just the teams all around. I oversee IT, development, and design. So I work closely with Jeremiah, our creative director, who you saw in the first webinar. So we're always working to improve our content management system, our reporting, our designs, just all around everything design and marketing related. So a little bit about Vizergy. We've been delivering solutions for over 20 years. We work with many brands that trust us and rely on us for all things websites, hosting, IT, marketing, and just best practices and strategy. We work with clients and customers in many different states, many different provinces and countries. So definitely have seen a lot. So to start off, my goal or my initial discussion is goals of website analytics. So I tried to take a step back and just think about what does website analytics provide us at a very high level, kind of a fresh mind. And so let's dive in with that. So without tracking and analytics, your website still exists, but you don't know what's happening on it. It's just kind of a black hole. Yes, people are visiting it. Yes, maybe they're making it to your e-commerce platform and you can see reservations or conversions happening, but you don't really know what they're experiencing or where they're coming from. So that's kind of the main goal of website analytics. So the three big topics that I was going to focus on was how website analytics helps us discover your visitor demographics. So identify who are your visitors that are currently coming to your site today. Another focus is identifying website improvement opportunities. So your visitors' actions on your website can highlight problem areas that you should focus on. And then the last one is just measuring performance of marketing efforts. Are your marketing efforts performing as well as you hoped? So to start off with discovering your visitor demographics, I'm going to talk about just some demographics that just kind of come automatically with website analytics. They're not things that you have to actively go out and, tag URLs or do a bunch of work. Just as soon as you place your website analytics on your website, these are things that it can start telling you about your visitors. So one is geography, so country, state, city. As you can see here on the right, you can see some examples of, people coming from the United States, kind of at the country level, how many visits. You can look at all your different kind of metrics or at the country level. You can break it down to a state level, California, Arizona, Washington. So a lot of these on the West Coast. And then within those states, you can see specific cities. So you can have a better understanding of like local areas around you, or even if they're far away, kind of what buckets these people are coming from. So are you getting a lot of local visitors? Are they nearby drive time visitors, maybe just an hour, 2 hours away? Are they far away travelers? So it's just really handy to understand how these people are finding you, like how far away they are and what they're considering for a trip, if they're looking at your property. So the geography is identified by the visitor's IP and its known location. So every IP usually is kind of static, known to a certain location. So that's how just people visiting your site, you can know because when they visit, it's able to read their IP address. So what can we do with geography? So one example is personalization opportunities. So we can personalize the website for visitors coming from certain geographies. So you could mention if it's a close nearby area, hey, it's only X minutes away, or it's only X hours away, drive time. Or you can highlight certain things that are special for guests from that location. Like in Florida, a lot of times there's certain Florida locals discounts. So if you can show that to people from your area, only to them, that can entice them to maybe look a little longer. But you don't want to be showing that to someone who's not from that state or not from that area. So it's a great way to personalize based on geography. So moving on, so another demographic that we can discover for our visitors through web analytics is referring domains. So at some point, a link existed on a different website that pointed to your website. A visitor clicked on that link and came into your website. And during that transition into your website, that's when we can read the referrer. So there's websites that are sending visitors, and you can see how to maybe grow those references, because if they're driving visits, if those visits are ultimately leading to conversions, then that's something that maybe you want to kind of double down on and see if you can build that relationship. So over here on the right is an example looking at referring domains, visitflorida.com, travelandleisure.com, theknot.com, visit Jacksonville. So these are all great kind of city related, travel related websites. At this point, we're just looking at the domain, but you can run additional reports to look at the full kind of referring URL. Sometimes you're able to still capture that from certain websites. And that will tell you the exact page that the person came from. So maybe it was an article about something going on in the area, and a hotel was listed as kind of like a dedicated place to stay, or maybe they're just talking about the city in general, and they're mentioning some great places to stay. So you want to find out where these people are coming from, understand what interested them about that content, and try and build upon that. And so kind of like Jeremiah mentioned during the first webinar, so you can personalize based on the referrer. So you could target people coming from these domains, and maybe the domain is for a specific topic. Maybe it's about an event, or maybe it's about weddings or about leisure. So knowing what domain that person's coming from can kind of give you a hint as to their intent. If it is wedding related, if it's group related or corporate related. So then you can update your website, have it dynamically show them content that speaks to that, speaks to their intent. And so as they're coming in, that's going to speak to them that much more. They're going to know that this is where I want to be. It's speaking exactly to the intent that I was looking for. So I'm interested. Let me keep browsing. So the last kind of demographic that I was going to mention was language. So are you getting a large number of visitors from different languages? Maybe you need some translated content on your website. The language is identified by what is set in the visitor's browser. So they've configured their browser to be Spanish or German. And so as they browse websites, that's communicated to the website. And so we're able to report on that. So in this example over here, you can see English is the dominant one, but there is some German, 6%, some Portuguese. So that could be something that you consider, well, let me maybe build a page, just a single page, with some information about my property that's in German, maybe Portuguese, and just having that translated content, could serve up better in the search engines, make people feel more accommodated. Another thing you can do, again, is using personalization to target people coming in with a certain language. So even if you don't have dedicated pages to that, you could still personalize some of the content on the site to show messaging in that language. Then that way, again, they feel accommodated. They feel like, this is a good place for me to be. Let me keep going. So again, these were just some basic visitor demographics that you can identify for your visitors as soon as you have web analytics on your website. And there's definitely more you can look at, devices, browsers, dimensions, tablet, mobile, which we all know mobile is a huge portion of traffic these days. But this is just a sample and just good ways to kind of slice and dice your data. So the next topic I wanted to focus on was how we can use website analytics to identify website improvement opportunities. So a very basic one is just looking at page views and visits. So you build out your website, you put a lot of focus on the different pages, the imagery, the content that you're putting into those pages. But we need to go back and look at, well, how many people are visiting these pages? How many page views are they getting? Are certain pages getting more than you thought? Are some pages getting less than you had hoped? And so as we look at this, the home page obviously going to be the biggest page. And then you get down to some of the other main pages, rooms and suites, amenities for this hotel example, special offers. And then you kind of start getting the tail end. In this case, we've got some area guide pages. So this is just good to look at and just ask yourself, is there a page down at the bottom of the list that I thought would have been driving more interest? You can reevaluate that page, but you can also drive more traffic to specific pages by providing CTAs kind of throughout the site and meaningful cross-linking between pages. So if they're on a page, providing a CTA or a link from that page to another page in the site just to kind of guide them on their, path through your site, trying to help them find other meaningful content on the site. And this is another example. I know it's kind of small, but it's kind of a flow analysis. So if someone's starting at the home page, what's the next set of pages that people normally go to? And then from those pages, what are the next pages that people go to from there? So it can get kind of messy. There's a lot of movement going on in there between visitors. You'd be surprised how much they hop back and forth between different areas of a site, but it can still be a good analysis to go through, and it's a good tool to look at that flow. And then again, personalization opportunities. So you can personalize the website for visitors who visit specific pages. So maybe you've got a special kids center. So if someone hits that page, you can assume that they're kind of kid focused. So you can update some of the images to focus on, kids having fun, families having fun. Same with meeting and wedding. Jeremiah showed a quick demo of that, changing out your site to show kind of wedding content, wedding photography. If it's pet friendly, they visit a pet friendly page and then you change out all your photos to show, cute dogs and just animals having a fun time. That can definitely speak volumes to them. They'll be that much more excited about taking their furry friend with them. So those are just some good examples there for looking at the page visits. So another one is time on page and time on site. How much time are visitors spending on each page and on your site as a whole? Is it more or less than you thought? A good site average to compare against is 2 to 3 minutes in total at the site average level. So one good exercise you can do, kind of like the page views, is kind of sort by time spent, ascending. So you're looking at the ones that had the least amount of time. And again, just kind of look at those pages. Is there things we can do to capture people's attention more on those? Maybe they need more content, better images, things like that. So improvement opportunities. So which pages have the least amount of time? Yep, and I kind of spoke to that. So improving images, improving the content, adding engaging elements to the page to kind of keep them going. All right, and then so another area for website improvement opportunities is looking at exits and bounces. So exits are the number of times a page was the last page in a visit. So maybe they came in on the home page, they clicked around through 10 other pages. Then at some point, there's always an exit page. That's one thing to say is you'll never get rid of exit pages because at some point, every visit ends. Someone stops browsing your site. But it's good to look at those exit pages to see if maybe there's a problem on that page. So bounces are a little bit different. So those are visits that contained exactly one page view. So maybe someone's Googling something, your link shows up, you click it, they see the page and they say, nope, that's not what I wanted, and then they leave. So that's a bounce. So it's just kind of one page view. They don't browse anything else. So visitors maybe they didn't find what they were looking for. They didn't like what they saw. Maybe the imagery just didn't speak to them, or uh, whatever Google served up, just it wasn't relevant for them. So maybe it was Google's fault. Or maybe the content on the page is just not maybe not as relevant as it should be for the property, for the guests. And then lastly, just to mention is maybe they found exactly what they wanted. Maybe they found your contact page, grabbed the phone number off of it, and that's all they needed, and they left. So if your contact us page is showing up high as a bounce, maybe that's not a problem. So just some different things to think about. Yep. Okay. So moving right along, and here's just an example of pages. So you can look at all of this at once. So you've got your pages, you've got entries. How many times was this the first page of someone's visit? Bounces is if it was the first page and then they left. So in this case, we had 35 people enter the area guide page. That was their first start of their visit on this site. But then 28 of those bounced. So only, 7 people actually ended up staying, something like that. So your bounce rate is 80%. So those are some good metrics that you can kind of look at to help analyze your pages. So next, I wanted to talk about measuring performance of marketing efforts. So up until now, we've kind of looked at analytics that just kind of gets collected automatically. You're looking at geography, referring domain, you're looking at number of page views, time on page, things like that. So all of that just kind of happens naturally with web analytics. But to measure marketing channels, that does take a little bit of effort. That takes work to make sure that visitors are being identified for the proper marketing channel. Yep. So the big piece is knowing what URL parameters identify different marketing channels in your analytics platform. Whichever platform it is, they use different URL parameters to identify visitors from specific channels. And so this is really critical, is make sure all your teams are aware of the necessary parameters. So if you have an online media team, they need to know what the parameters are to identify their online media campaigns. If you have an email marketing campaign team, they need to make sure that they always tag all their email links with the proper email codes. Same with social post if you're doing anything like that. So all the teams need to kind of be aware. Otherwise, that traffic is going to be attributed to the wrong channels. So the teams might say, oh, we drove, we had 10,000 clicks. But then when you look at your web analytics, it's not going to show any traffic, from that channel because the URLs weren't tagged appropriately. So it's very critical to get that kind of defined for everyone on the team. So this is just an example down here. So looking at channels, we have natural search, which is like Google, Bing, just kind of your normal search engines. So direct would be people who are just coming right back to the website. Maybe they had it in their history and they visited prior. Maybe they've got something bookmarked or someone sent them a link. So that would be direct. So paid search is Google, paid ads, Bing ads, things like that. And then referring domains, we've talked about social networks, Facebook, Twitter, just all the different networks. Paid social would be like Facebook ads. So you can have all these different channels. That way you can track all these different metrics, visits, revenue, reservations. So very critical. So the next piece I want to talk about is when measuring your marketing efforts is tracking room nights, ADR, reservations, revenue, just all of the conversion data. So being able to track visitors and marketing channels all the way through to the final conversion point, making a reservation, for example, very important. So in order to get that working, the tracking has to be installed. It has to be checked and tested. And then you need to verify that you're actually seeing the data in the analytics platform like you would imagine. So a lot can happen with that setup, with that integration. With so many booking engines available, it can be difficult to successfully implement tracking in the variety of engines. At Vizergy, we've got a lot of kind of templated instructions for different engines that we've worked with and we've been kind of engaged with. So a lot of times it can go really smoothly. You just provide the instructions to someone, they copy the code, they follow the step-by-steps on where to place it. They let us know that it's been done. We can test it, go to the booking engine, make sure we see stuff firing, wait a couple days, check the analytics, make sure we see it actually showing, reservations, revenue, rate names, room types, all of that good information. But it definitely is a process. And I would say too, if people are switching booking engines, it's very important to get your analytics team kind of in the loop ahead of time. What engine are you switching to? Let them provide you any new tracking instructions that needs to be implemented, got to go through the whole process, testing, verifying. So it's very important. And I would say even as of late, it's become, even more sensitive to like domains switching. So maybe it's the generic booking engine domain, but then the client wants to switch to like a white label version of that, where it's like reservations.clientdomain.com. That can help a lot with, tracking across the different platforms to have that consistent domain. But even just changing the booking engine domain, even though it's the same engine, you still need to get your analytics team in the loop, because now all of a sudden the tracking codes are firing from a completely different domain that hasn't been seen before and it hasn't been flagged as being part of the website. So a lot of times that can throw off your channel attribution when that happens if your analytics team isn't in the loop. So just wanted to give a quick plug on that. So next is just talking about customers delivered to reservation system. So this is an important part of the funnel. It's a step in the tracking where they're on your hotel website or whatever website, and then they're clicking off to the e-commerce platform, like a hotel reservation system. So just them transferring off to the booking engine, we track those events because sometimes, whatever reason, you can't actually implement tracking on the e-commerce platform. Maybe it's a branded hotel and the branded booking engine doesn't allow third-party code, which is very common. So even though you can't report on reservations and revenue, you can still report on the number of people that you delivered to the booking engine. And so that can be a good way just to kind of look over time how things are performing, how many of your marketing channels are actually driving that traffic. So very helpful even if you can't track reservations itself. Lastly, I was going to talk about form submissions. Meeting and wedding RFP forms can lead to large group reservations, so it's very important to kind of track how these are converting. So make sure you are tracking form conversions to see which channels and campaigns are contributing the most to them. So if you're running an email campaign or you're running paid ads for groups, you definitely want to be able to show those form conversions for those channels. And I know it can be a little messy too sometimes, because like at Vizergy, we have our own form system, but then sometimes clients want to have a third-party lead generation vendor implement their own form on the website, which is fine. But again, you want to make sure that you can track that. So however you're implementing forms on your website, you need to make sure that you can track that in your analytics platform. And then the last thing I was going to say about forms is it's good to see how easy your forms are to use. So just a quick reminder that as people, when they land on your page and they see the form, it's kind of like, how big is that form? How many fields do you have in that form? Because just seeing that at first, if they're not completely dedicated, like, yes, I already know that I want to reach out to, this website, they might be like, I'm not that interested in it. So do you have any fields that aren't needed? Our visitors rarely filling out all of the optional fields. I know you want to provide them as many optional fields so you can gather as much information as possible, but sometimes having too many fields can be a little daunting. So consider removing some that are rarely used if it's not super important information, and just trying to keep it to be as not overwhelming for guests as possible. All right, so we kind of looked at things that our web analytics can tell us. We talked about demographics, we talked about website improvement opportunities, and then we talked about tracking marketing channels. Oh, let's see, we did get one quick question. Are you able to have form submissions automatically populate to an existing email capture system, such as a constant contact? So that is a capability of the Vizergy form system. We have an integration feature behind the scenes where, yes, we always collect the submissions in the Vizergy marketing system, but to save people time, if they don't want to have to come in, every month and download submissions and then manually upload them, or maybe people are just copying the info out of each email that they get upon each submission. We do have a way to auto push that information to different platforms, and we've integrated with a lot of different vendors. So definitely reach out if that's something you're interested in. Saves a lot of time, keeps it accurate, and then that way you just know in your other system that you're always working with the latest and greatest data. It's not a month delayed or anything like that. So having looked at kind of those three things that web analytics can help us, I wanted to talk about just different ways you can review your data, different ways you can slice and dice it. So one is to look at metrics and channels trended over time. It's another way to look at it that's better than just looking at, is a number up or down, just looking at numbers directly. You want to look at it trended because that can help you see just different things. If you look year over year, month over month, week over week even, so is the change seasonal? Is this kind of expected for this time of year, or is this a new development? So even if metrics stayed the same, so say your visit count stayed the same, there could be underlying channel shifts taking place, such as, maybe paid search is increasing and natural search visits have gone down, or maybe there's a problem, which I'll speak more about later, with your channel attribution kind of losing the accurate attribution, and then it's all falling into one other bucket because maybe the booking engine domain switched or something. So definitely looking at a trended is helpful. So in this example here, you can see this year, I believe this was visits. So visits is higher than last year. That's great. But you can see at the beginning of the year, it's normally higher. And once you kind of get into, spring approaching summer, it kind of gets a little lower. So if you're seeing, if you're looking at just like month over month numbers, it might look like, oh, I'm down month over month. But this helps you kind of understand, like, is this normal? You can look at year over year, the same month last year versus the month this year. So that can help kind of shed some light on it. So next, there's different attribution models. In the Vizergy marketing system, we, primarily show last touch channel. So whatever the last channel was that the person came in on before they booked is what we attribute the revenue to. But there's other attribution models. Like in Adobe Analytics, we can run different models. There's first touch, so you can give the credit to the first channel that they interacted with. There's stack channel, where you're kind of looking at all the channels that people interacted with before they converted. There's channel assist, which we provide in the Vizergy marketing system. So if you're looking at paid search, for example, even if it wasn't the last channel they interacted with before they converted, we'll still give paid search some credit if they interacted with it at some point during the person's visit or during their kind of session of clicking back and forth between the website and different channels. So not trying to get too technical, I want to try and keep it a high level, but it can get pretty deep. And then the other thing is just monitoring up and down percentages in addition to the raw values. So a channel could be up 1,000 visits up, but to know if that is significant, you should review what the percentage up is. If you had 100,000 visits last month and this month you're up 1,000 visits, that's still good, but maybe it isn't as that significant. And then here's just an example of looking at channels over time. So this is June. So email is the light blue line. So you can see where these spikes in visits were for email. So that could be maybe some email campaigns went out around that time. People were just kind of coming back to their emails and looking at them again. Then also paid search, you can see there was a dip here. So maybe paid search, you still saw the same performance, but then you could say, hey, what happened here? Maybe, spending was paused temporarily or something happened. So it's good to look at it trended because it could shed lights on things that you might have missed if you were just looking at the raw numbers. Okay, next. So again, ways to review your data and looking at it in different ways. So bringing together data from separate platforms all into one view. This is one thing we do at Vizergy. So we bring in your web analytics, We're integrated with Google Ads platform, Facebook ads. So we bring all that together so you can look at your ad platform data and your web analytics data because they interact with each other. If you're serving them an ad, yes, you want to look at impressions and clicks, but then you want to see what happened for that channel when they were on the website too, and what happened, how they converted ultimately in the booking engine. So we try to bring all that together into one view, so you're not having to jump around and trying to manually compare them. So another great example to look at your data is portfolio level reporting. So this is just a screenshot from the Vizergy marketing system where if you have a portfolio with multiple accounts, you can view them at a quick level from our portfolio view. Each account is account up or down. We provide a portfolio average. So you can know, like, is my portfolio as a whole up or is it down? Maybe there's some extremes in there that are causing that. And then two, within the portfolio, you want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. So you can take your accounts and you can put them into different groups. Maybe it's select service and full service, because you don't want to be comparing properties that are completely different in nature and have different types of clientele, different types of traffic. So that's another great example in the Vizergy marketing system. And let me actually just jump over there real quick as we're talking about this. I did get logged out, bear with me. So this is just a demo account that we have. So as we're just talking about all these different things, kind of trying to bring it all together. You don't have to go directly into Adobe or a different ad platform by default. We try to bring everything together in the Vizergy marketing system to just bring together the most important things, so you just have a real clear understanding of how things are performing without having to go drill into tons and tons of different reports. So again, looking at some trended metrics like visits, CDRS, looking at year-to-date numbers, you can look at percentages up or down. We provide some CMS metrics, but again, so your channel performance, natural search, am I up or down in different metrics, other channels, if you're participating in, paid search, email, performance max, things like that. Highlighting different feeder sources, like what cities are driving the most CDRS and revenue, referring websites. So we try to bring a lot of this to the forefront. You can definitely click in and see additional reports within here without having to go off into a separate analytics platform. But again, I would say just try and keep it as easy to digest up front before you go too deep. Okay, and then so next I was going to talk additionally about, so in the modern age, we're hearing about AI everywhere, and one thing we've worked on is trying to provide AI insights on web analytics metrics. So you can see, it helps call out, I would say, just kind of the biggest movers and shakers in your data. If something's up 1%, I don't really care so much about that. Like, tell me the things that are moving a lot. And then to help you save time even more, instead of just telling you that, okay, now I have to go dig into that myself, trying to show you some of the underlying factors that have caused that change. So like in this case, visits month to date are up 44%. Okay, well, that's great, but what caused that? With the biggest channel changes being direct up 111%, so 8,100 visits, and referring domains being up 2,100 visits, which is up 66% over the last month. So it's a great day and age when we can just have these quick digests that help us keep tabs on our analytics and how things are moving, and it provides kind of some sub-level information that we can quickly read these at a glance and just kind of maybe know where I want to transition to next to dig a little deeper. And then also, while we were talking about page analytics, within our content management system, we're going to be rolling out soon a new side panel, so that as you're clicking through and looking at the individual pages of your CMS, it's actually going to be showing you web analytics data right next to that page. So if you're coming in to, say, tweak a page, update the imagery, update some content, you need to have within that context, well, how has this page been performing historically? Is it getting more bounces than I thought? Am I up in visits, down in visits? We're trying to marry, web analytics and you updating your content. You shouldn't have to bounce back and forth between both systems to be informed about this kind of thing. So right within the CMS, kind of in a new side panel, you're going to be seeing your page analytics as you're working in the CMS, which is going to be awesome. So lastly, I was just going to talk kind of just maintenance of your analytics. Your analytics platform or your vendor should be doing these things for you proactively, but you can do them yourselves as well, just by building a couple reports or getting some email to you. So be proactive in catching issues early. So one is if you see reservations and revenue take a sharp decrease or go to completely zero, then you know you've got some kind of booking engine tracking issue. So here's an example where revenue just fell off and it was just kind of coming in at a trickle. In this case, a booking engine vendor had actually deployed some updates to their own platform that broke tracking. And so it took a little while. We had to reach out to them, provide evidence, hop on calls, show them the issue. Once they understood the issue, they had to kind of work it into their update pipeline before they could get the fix deployed. So then once they did, then revenue started tracking normally again. And so we have, proactive kind of exception reports that we look at weekly so that we can try and catch these things early. Because the worst is when, say you're doing monthly or quarterly reviews, you don't want to get into that review and then you realize there's been a problem for the last, multiple weeks. So definitely be proactive about making sure your tracking is still working. So another is drastic changes in reservation and revenue channel attribution. So maybe the booking engine domain might have changed, or cross-domain tracking is broken between the website and the booking engine. So if you see, natural search fall off all of a sudden, or paid search fall off all of a sudden, so those are things you want to be looking out for. So it's good just to have some kind of recurring exception reports. And then last, drastic changes in other channel metrics like visits. So did online media campaigns turn off suddenly? You want to be aware of that. Or maybe you hit your budget for that month a little early. Did Google implement a search engine algorithm update in natural search? Traffic saw a big change. Maybe it went up, which is great. It's benefiting you. Or maybe it went down all of a sudden, in which case you want to start looking into that, looking at, what we show up for within the different search engine indexes. Okay. So then at the end here, I don't want to get too technical on this, but I just wanted to mention it because I know it could be a topic, is so modern day challenges with web analytics. Web analytics is an ever-changing landscape. So yes, you can implement it, and a lot of times you want it to be set it and forget it. But it is something where we have to stay up to date on all the things that are happening, both privacy-wise and data-wise. So some things that can make web analytics difficult these days is third-party cookie blocking, tracking, limiting, and blocking in general. There are people, using browsers and extensions that do block ads and do block tracking and tag management systems. And unfortunately, that is just something we face these days, and it's not something where you can force those people to allow tracking. I was going to mention that Google did just recently announce that they are keeping third-party cookies. If that was something you were following, there had been a lot of talk. It had been in the news a lot about third-party cookies going away. They were going to come up with some alternate solution for it, but they did recently announce that they are staying, just because of pushback from the different communities and tracking and ad platform systems out there. So another one kind of facing modern day web analytics is cookie consent managers, like tracking consent managers. It's something that depends on each organization and their legal requirements. So definitely consult your own legal team. But whatever analytics platform you're using, just make sure that it can integrate with whatever consent manager that you might be looking to use. Just making sure that it can, turn off the analytics, turn it on appropriately. So another one is IP and geography masking. So you might not get the exact precise location for all visitors if their geography is being masked, but you will get something close to it. Kind of like if you're, trying to map something on your phone, it's like you want to share your exact location or like an approximate location. So URL parameter stripping. This was something facing like Facebook click IDs, Google click IDs, something that kind of uniquely identified that person. So like if they're viewing in private browsing mode, those are some URL parameters that are getting stripped for privacy reasons. One thing we do at Vizergy that I was going to mention is that we have what we call the anonymous reservation channel. So we have our main tracking system on the websites in the booking engines. Then we actually have a backup tracking system that doesn't use cookies. It just records some of the details of the final conversion. So you don't get any kind of channel information or anything like that. But it does at least record that, hey, this reservation did happen on the online booking engine. Here was the revenue for it. Here were some other details for it. And so we actually push that back into Adobe. So when you're going to look at your web marketing reports, that total revenue number will be fuller, like it'll be more accurate. So if you're trying to compare to your actual reservation system, you don't want it to be saying, the reservation system is saying $1 million and your web analytics is saying, $750,000. That could be a gap. And you're like, well, wait, what's that gap? And it could be just because, some of that tracking was blocked or something. Sometimes too, it's changes were made in the booking engine and the tracking got broken for a little bit, but at least you have that backup so you can say, hey, these reservations were still happening. So that's an extra level of protection when it comes to kind of reservation reporting and revenue reporting. So with all these modern day challenges, it's kind of like, what do you do? So coming back to some of the basics, make sure you're using the latest and greatest tracking provided by your vendor and keep that up to date. You want to make sure that you implement your tracking in the website and the booking engine like normal. You want to make sure that as visitors click from the website to the booking engine, that any cross-domain URL parameters that are required for your analytics platform, you want to make sure that they're passed appropriately. So as they start their visit on the website, and then when they click to the booking engine, you want to make sure that that person's still identified as the same individual. You don't want it to start a whole new visit in the booking engine because then you lose the channel information. What was the original channel that they came into the website on? So this is something that your tracking team, analytics vendor should be setting up and making sure it's working. Yep, and so if third-party cookies can't be used, then tracking can fall back on first-party cookies to try and keep a unique identifier for that visitor and make sure that that first-party information is passed between the domains. Yep, and then lastly, use custom tracking parameters to help identify your marketing channels and campaigns. So like we were talking about before, all your teams need to make sure that they've got the right parameters defined and just make sure you use that consistently. So you had a question, what is a good way to record walk-up bookings and how can you bring those into your analytics tool to see the full picture? How do you attribute them? So that's a good question. Normally with website analytics platforms, you're dealing with just kind of the online space, people who booked online. You're still going to get, with your property, you're still going to get call-ins, walk-ins. Those are still happening. And I would say that's great first-party data. Definitely if you're looking at your PMS, your property management system, that's going to be the full picture of all your reservations. So that is something that potentially could be pushed into the analytics platform if you're wanting to use it as the full picture reporting. I guess the one thing I'll say is that you won't be able to really attribute marketing channels to those. So I'm not sure how beneficial it would be. It would at least help you see your full total revenue, total reservations. If you've got maybe some marketing channel information tied to it, like if they fill out a survey or something like, how did you hear about us? How did you find us? That could potentially help. But it's just some things to think about. I was going to say as I was talking about, we do push in kind of what we call those anonymous reservations. Those are still online reservations. I guess they occurred in the booking engine, just they weren't able to be tracked through the normal tracking platform. Okay, so in summary, coming back to those first three topics, your analytics can help you discover visitor demographics, identify website improvement opportunities, and measure your performance of your marketing efforts. So just wanted to kind of drive those 3 points home again. And then I'll turn it over to questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, everyone, if you have any additional questions, I know we were able to answer some of them through Kyle's presentation. So if there are any stragglers out there, please feel free to pop them in the chat. We've got about 13 minutes left on our time for today. So we want to make sure we can answer those questions. If there are any, I know that was a very thorough presentation, so thank you so much, Kyle, for that.
Yeah. And if anyone thinks of them after, definitely don't hesitate to send them in.
For sure. All right. Haven't seen any questions. I don't want to rush anybody if you are typing, so I will give you a couple minutes here. But if no other questions show up, then I don't want to hold you all hostage for the remainder of the time here. Um, but I want to thank you all again so much for joining us today. Again, my name is Jen Kelfy, and we heard from Kyle Peterson today at Vizergy. Thank you so much for joining us for Webinar Wednesdays and our Digital Marketing Lunch and Learn series with HSMAI South Florida. Hopefully we get to hang out with you guys again soon and throw some more knowledge your direction. But if you are interested in hearing more from us, please head on over to our website, vizergy.com. You can sign up to receive email notifications from us. Also give us a follow on LinkedIn, all that wonderful jazz to see what we're up to and to see where you can learn from our experts again.
Yeah.
I don't see any other questions that have come up, so I won't hold you all hostage as I mentioned. So thank you again, Kyle. Thank you so much to our friends at HSMAI South Florida, and hopefully we get to chat with you all again soon.
Yep. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.